I have the distinct honor this evening to interview a legend of the investment world, a hero of mine, someone that I sought out to learn more from. His name is Jim Rogers. If you're under 50 years of age, you probably don't know who Jim is, but you should. So after you see this video, we're going to do it in two parts, I believe, because there's just a lot I want to cover with him, and we're going to probably spend close to an hour with him. Jim came to the forefront back in, I guess it was 1973, when he and another unknown, George Soros, started what is called the Quantum Fund. Between 1970 and 1980, the Quantum Fund returned a total of 4,200% to its investors. So he and George became very noted. They did another thing that caused them some notoriety, and I believe it was around 1992, they did a short on the British pound. And as a result, they profited as the British pound came down and collapsed relative to the U.S. dollar. They profited over $1 billion. So Jim doesn't have to do much of anything that he doesn't want to do. He and I believe it was his second wife, actually got on motorcycles at one point and spent a year touring the road. Then he followed up and did something very similar, I believe it was with his third wife, in a converted Mercedes. So he's traveled the world. He basically believes that if you were living in England 100 years ago, you should have moved to the United States. And now he says and in the 2000s, he and his family to Singapore. He believed that the growth of the world was going to happen in Asia, and I think it's panned out pretty much the way he thought it would. I remember he once, and I'll mention this in the video, I'm sure, he said that he wanted his children to learn Mandarin. So let's take a look and enjoy this with Jim Rogers. I've given a lot of thought on what I want to ask you, and I've watched a lot of your videos, and you and I share a concern about debt. In fact,
about death? DEHT? Yeah, well.
BD. National debt.
Oh, debt, yes.
Yeah.
Great.
In fact, I went total cash last July, a year ago July, when I saw the national debt clock just keep clicking up and up and up, and realized that our economy was being funded by the federal government, taking our national debt from $2 trillion or $4 trillion in 2000, and today it's up to $27 trillion. And all we're doing is funding the stock market. So my question is, you and I were raised in the same time. I was told when it was time for me to buy a house that I had to work in this 28-36 ratio, that my debt payments could not be more than 100% of, or 36% of my annual income. Right now, our annual national tax income is roughly $3 trillion, and our payment is $3.8 trillion. So we're at 125%. Can this go on forever?
You know, Kerry, you said it's 27 trillion. Don't worry, just wait till next month. It'll be 28 trillion.
No, it'll be 30. It's 30. They're trying to get another 3 trillion.
Don't worry, it's going to go higher and higher, faster and faster.
But
I will tell you.
Where does it stop?
Well, I will tell you one thing, Kerry. It's a good time to be old in America. It is a terrible time to be young in America. You look back to England in the 100 years ago. They were the most powerful, richest nation in the world. There was no number two. And then you know what happened to them because they pursued this sort of path. I don't like saying it because I have young children who are Americans, but unfortunately, the next 100 years are not going to be so good for America if you look back at history. And every other nation in history that has pursued this path has wound up with problems. I don't like saying it. I'm an American just like you, but I know history and I know facts. So how does it end up? It ends up with a decline in the nation. I mean, even if we should have a war and win the war, Great Britain won the Second World War, and it was the end. The next 20 or 30 years were hopeless in Great Britain after they won. Won the war.
Who's going to replace us? Everybody else is doing the same thing.
Well, throughout history, Kerry, somebody has always risen to replace us, whoever us is. You look back over the past few hundred years, there's always been a great nation or two in every century, but it's never been the same great nation or two in those centuries. Somebody comes along. I can give you some candidates, but who cares what my candidates are? All I know is
candidates are. China has to be a China has to be, but nobody wants their currency.
Well, I don't know which currency you mean, but I will tell you there are some currencies out there that I own a lot of U.S. dollars. But I do know that there are going to be currencies that are going to replace the U.S. dollar. And there's some that I am trying to learn more about to prepare myself for that period.
So now you're talking your cryptocurrency.
No. Cryptocurrencies are going to disappear and go to zero.
Whose currency?
I mean, first of all, money is going to be on the computer. There's no question about that. It already is. You go to China, you cannot take a taxi with money. You cannot buy an ice cream with money. It's already on the computer in many countries. America's behind, but don't worry, I'm sure we'll catch up.
Yeah.
We can copy other people. We've been very good at copying people for centuries. I'm sure we'll do it again. There will be money on the computer, but it's going to be government money. 100 years or 80 years ago, the Bank of England, but you could use anything for money, gold, silver, seashells. Banks could print their own money legally. You could use anything. And the Bank of England said, from now on, it's an act of treason to use anything for money except our money. Well, Kerry, treason means they execute you. Yeah. So people stop using other money. And the banks and the governments will say eventually, it's illegal to use anything except our money. Our money, the government money will be on the computer, but it's going to be their money. It's not going to be somebody else's. They're going to loot. They're going to give up monopoly. First of all, it saves them a lot of money to put it on the computer. Second, they have complete control. They'll know everything. They'll call you up, Kerry, and say, Kerry, you've been drinking too much coffee this month. Cut down on your coffee. They'll know everything you do. They love it.
I was in Cuba in March, I guess it was in February, and I saw that if a country controls the currency, they control the population, and it's like our guide said. I could have a bushel basket of Cuban pesos, and I couldn't buy a candy bar anywhere else in the world. And that I agree with you. But so, okay, I'm an investor. I'm looking at a country that is feeding its stock market with American dollars. And I see them issuing $3 trillion at a time. It comes through my hands, it trickles down. And the best as I can determine, it ended up in Jeff Bezos's pocket and Mark Zuckerberg's. When does this stop?
Well, I'm not very good at market timing, Kerry. I'm told you're good at this sort of thing. I am not. I don't know, but I do know it will end. I would suspect it's going to end probably when I say after the election, 2021 more likely, or maybe November, depending on what happens in the election. But no, it cannot go on forever. Nothing that is too good to be true can last forever. It's always too good to be true, exactly. By definition.
It's like Warren Buffett said, if it's too good but to be true, it's going to end. It
Yeah.
is going to
Too
end.
good,
Yeah.
too good to be true means too good to be true.
Exactly.
And
Okay.
it will be.
Well,
No, I would love for the stock market to go on forever, but I'm old enough or experienced enough or have read enough to know it doesn't. The only thing that might make it go on much longer is MMT. That whenever we have problems, there's a new theory that rises. Remember, Mr. Marx had this wonderful
yes.
theory, and a lot of people loved it. We now know it's absurd, but a lot of people for a long time tried Mr. Marx's theories. Well, we now have MMT, which means more money today, more money
I
tomorrow.
wasn't with you.
Oh, MMT, more money today.
Yeah.
Please, Carrie, I want more money today, today, today. Everybody does.
Do you
And if
remember
you
that?
do that,
Do you remember the Dire Straits song, "Money for Nothing and the Chicks for Free"?
no, I don't remember. I wish I'd been there. Uh, sounds wonderful.
It
Sounds wonderful.
does. Yeah.
You know, the British are already, they're not announcing it, but they're already basically practicing more money today. But modern monetary theory, I guess, is the official type. So it might come along. And if that's the case, then this could go on longer than it should. And then the end will be even worse. But otherwise, it doesn't look like too many people are going to take up MMT right now.
No.
But it's going to last. You tell me when it's going to win or end and when.
If I had to pick a date, I'd say somewhere in mid-March next year.
Okay, good. I'll write it down. I watch every day. I know I'm not smart enough to get it right.
Well, I think another thing I heard you say that really resonated with me is you make the big money when you make the big bet. And that is you make a decision, I'm going to cash or I'm going to short, and you're right. But I also subscribe to your theory, the wrong approach is diversification.
Well, Carrie, first I want to quickly tell you I make plenty of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes. You want to hear about my first wife, Carrie? Oh, my. What a mistake that was. What a horrible mistake that was. But I make plenty of mistakes. So don't rely on me for market timing or anything.
Okay.
Sometimes I get it right. Sometimes I get it right. And so far, I can pay my bills.
I'm not worried about you.
I am. I am, even if you're not.
Okay. Another statement I heard you make is you thought that there was an overreaction to the coronavirus. Could you go a little deeper on that? Because I totally disagree with you on that.
Okay, well, let's look at, first of all, throughout history, we've had epidemics, and never before in world history, never has the world closed down. Never before did they close McDonald's because of an epidemic. Never before did they close shipping or transportation or airports because of it, including in the United States. This time we did. It seems to me some media and some politicians panicked and said we got to close the world. Some places, such as Sweden, did not close down.
Right.
And Sweden is no worse off than anybody else, and in fact is better off than some places. You know, you look at the place, Belarus didn't close down. They're no worse. Well, they got their own problems, but not because of the epidemic. And some states didn't close down. Singapore closed down. I live in Singapore. In my view, it's a terrible, terrible mistake. We were having no problems until they closed, or very few problems until they closed down. After they closed down, all kind of problems arose.
But let me ask you a personal question. Do you actively wear a mask? Do you quarantine yourself, or not quarantine, but isolate yourself? Do you and your wife have you limited your outdoor your social activities?
Well, first of all, in Singapore, you have to wear a mask or they arrest you. So yes, okay. I wear a mask when I go out. I don't wear a mask when I'm talking to you. If you want, I'll go in and get my mask and put it on. I'll put my mask on. If you're several tens of thousands of kilometers away, but I'll go put it on if you want.
Not an issue.
Of
I
course,
don't know. I
we
guess
wear, of
I see
course we
myself.
wear masks. In Singapore, they have all kind of rules, and we abide by them. We have to.
And you are one of the most civilized countries in the world. I mean, and the safest countries in the world. From what I've read, I remember the incident where some young man got put in jail for running keying a Jaguar a number of years ago, and it made national news that you just don't step out of line in Singapore. I immediately thought that's a place I'd like to live.
Well, first of all, that was 26 years ago. It wasn't recently. And what
No,
he did, he didn't get put in jail. What he did, though, he went and defaced and vandalized a very expensive car.
yeah,
Now, Carrie, if you went and vandalized anything, you'd probably get put in jail in most countries in the world. He didn't get put in jail. He got the reason it made the press is because
flogged. He got
he got
flogged.
he got flogged. The
Yeah.
caning, they call it here. They got several strokes of the cane,
That's
CAN, which is a punishment that they got from the American Army or Navy and the British Navy.
okay.
But they still do it. They still do it here, for better or for worse. Let's not get into a discussion of cane. The kid got caned. He eventually and his family left Singapore. I mean, I don't really know. I wasn't even here then, but that's what happened.
Okay.
But I assure you, if you come in and vandalize my car, Carrie, I am not going to be happy. I'm going to call the
I
police.
wouldn't either. That's another interesting thing in my videos. I quite often comment that I've made a lot of mistakes. Two of them sit in my garage. They're $200,000 worth of depreciating assets that I have to put about $10,000 worth of maintenance and fuel into every year. No, I made a lot of mistakes.
Well,
That's not good management of money. Speaking of money, the stability of the U.S. dollar. Um, and we touched on it a bit, and I know there is a movement in in creating a universal currency, as you said, which would end up on the phone. Some people think that's cryptocurrency. You apparently don't subscribe to that. I personally don't understand it. I've tried to educate myself on it, but I can't get there. It's beyond my pay grade. Um, so I'm just confused as to if it isn't the U.S. dollar, what is it going to be?
well, just back to cryptocurrency again. Governments have never given up the control and the
Right.
power, and they're not this time either. If crypto becomes halfway successful as a currency, governments are going to put them out of business. And they all say, "Listen, Jim, we're smarter than the government," and they are. But the government's got guns, Gary. The government's got tanks. And if the government says it's an act of treason, you're not going to, I'm not anyway,
I'm not
going to use, I'm not going to use their money. What will it be? Well, history always, something always rises. Now, as I look around the world, the euro, which would be a choice for many people, but the euro has so many problems that I don't see how it can work. Japan, of course, has worse problems, and it's limited, small. The only thing I see on the horizon is the Chinese currency, the renminbi. But Kerry, that's absurd. It's a blocked currency. No blocked currency can be the world's reserve currency or medium of exchange. Now, they have been opening it up since 2005, but it's still a blocked currency. It's getting less and less blocked, but it's still blocked. So I don't know right now, but I know that necessity is the mother of invention. And if we need it, we're going to find something. Mankind always has.
I have also heard you say that you invest in a lot of foreign stocks. You invest in Russia. You invest in China. With the uneasiness of the political situation and the not openness about sharing truth, are you comfortable with that?
Sharing what?
Well, you see reports, I've seen reports from Chinese mining companies, and then someone goes and visits the mine and there's no one working there, and it's all false financial data that is fed. I can't get comfortable with not being able to trust who I'm investing in.
Well, Kerry, that sounds like America, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know how long you've been investing, but at least every year there's a huge scandal. You remember Enron? What was that
Yes, of course.
great gold mine? There was a great gold mine in the 90s where it had huge amounts of gold. Turned out there wasn't anything there. Wasn't anything.
I can drive to Texas and see there's a scam going on at Enron. I can't get to mainland China and out in the hinterlands and see.
Then Kerry, it's a simple answer. Don't invest.
I don't.
I hope you have learned in your life that if you don't know what's going on, you should not be investing. For goodness sake, this is one of the very first lessons that I try to teach people. Don't invest in anything that you yourself don't understand perfectly.
So how do you come to understand a company in Russia?
Well, who knows if I'm right or not, but I have been around a little bit, and I will tell you, the first time I went to Russia, I came away saying this will never work. And for 45 years, I was bearish on Russia. The only time I ever invested in Russia, I was short the ruble back in the late 90s. It's the only time I ever invested there. But then I think I see changes in the Kremlin, and I have been to Russia many times, and I think I know what I'm doing. Now, do you go to the Russia? Do you go to Moscow? Do you fly Aeroflot Airlines? You probably don't. So please don't invest in Russia. Okay, just because I think I know what I'm doing doesn't mean you do, for goodness sake. So don't invest. It's that simple.
Okay. I think that's the good advice that I want my viewers to hear. If you don't know it, if you don't understand it, and if you don't have not inside, but personal knowledge, then don't invest in it. And I think that's anything.
It's the first rule, the first commandment that everybody should learn. But Kerry, you know as well as I do, nobody wants to hear that.
No.
That's boring. They want a hot tip. They want to be rich this week, or preferably today. Yeah, preferably this week, but maybe this month.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear boring stuff like wait until you know a lot about something. How boring. I want to get rich now.
I also use your phrase a lot. If you want to invest in a company, read their annual report. I'm a retired financial advisor. I read more now than I ever did as a financial advisor. Because as a financial advisor, I was a salesman. I was trying to capture your assets. Now I'm investing my own money and I read annual reports. I know I can pull their tax return.
Well, as you know, then, if you read the annual report, you do more than 95% of investors on Wall Street. If you read the notes to the annual report, you do more than 99% of the other investors. So you're way ahead.
You and the CFO are the only ones that read those notes.
You're way ahead of everybody. Doesn't mean you're going to be right, but you're going to be far ahead of everybody else.
I agree with you totally. And I also agree that the novice investor doesn't realize that he is playing with professionals, and he has to, if he expects to win, he has to be knowledgeable. And to do anything else is like going to Las Vegas. And 90% of the people who walk out of Las Vegas lose money. And I think it's probably true in the stock market too.
If you think of the stock market as gambling, you should not be investing. Investing in the stock market is not gambling. If you think it's gambling, you should not be investing. You should go to Las Vegas. At least you know the odds are against you in Las Vegas. They are in the.
Let me say this. If I go to Las Vegas, I'm playing at the poker table, and I know everything about everybody else that I'm playing against, and I know if I'm smarter than them. If there's two people at that table that I know are better than me, I get up and walk. That's not gambling. But
the stock market is not gambling again, I'll repeat, if you think it's gambling, you should not be there.
Okay. But the key is if. if
Yeah,
you're
well,
knowledgeable. You
most
made
people
another
think,
statement that I want to pursue further because I have a lot of my viewers who are gravitating towards ETFs. And you made a statement that you feel ETFs are dangerous because once a market turns on you, they cascade. They create a landslide. Can you elaborate on that?
well, I repeat that I use ETFs. It's wonderful, especially for people like me who are lazy. It's very, very simple. But
Okay.
what I have explained is that when the bear market comes, they're going to get destroyed because that's where everybody has their money. I just told you, I have my money there too. And once we all start getting out, we're going to dump our ETFs, and the ETFs are going to have to dump the stocks they own
Exactly.
because that's what everybody owns. So when all the ETFs money starts dumping IBM, whatever it is they all own, it's going to be an even worse nightmare. The best stocks will be the least bad stocks will be the ones that aren't in the ETFs.
Yeah. Okay.
Nobody
Yeah.
owns them.
Yeah, nobody
But
owns
the
it.
ETFs, when the people start dumping their ETFs, the ETFs are going to have to dump their stocks, and they all own the same things, and those stocks are going to get destroyed even more than in most bear markets.
The video is going to last over an hour, and so I've decided I want to separate it into two different videos. There's still an awful lot to absorb here. So we're going to break here, and then I'm going to open up with another session or the same session extended with Jim tomorrow. So make sure you tune in to that and save this, or it'll always be here because this is, I think, a real learning lesson.